Hi, everybody, and welcome to our second episode of Loving the Game. Today, I'm joined with Gareth Jenkinson from East Coast Radio. He also does quite a lot of journalistic work. He's been to the World Cup 2019. What a lucky guy he was, and I'm sure he's going to tell us a little bit about that. And let's get into it. And once again, thanks for everybody that's joined us. And let's get into it. Gareth, welcome, man. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you very much for doing this. Like I was saying to you before, I watched your interview with Andy from Scrum 5, and it was fantastic. It's nice to just listen to guys that are obviously covering the space, really, really passionate about rugby, getting to tell their story a little bit, because we're always interviewing rugby players and stuff like that, but you never get to chat to the people that are actually covering rugby and speaking about rugby all the time. So I think it's a pretty cool initiative, and thanks for getting me involved.
Oh, no, it's only a pleasure, man. Jeez. Gareth, just if you can give us a little bit, just tell us about what you do. And I mean, what is one or two of your passions in life, besides rugby? I mean, I know you're quite a big sports fan in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, just to start off with, obviously I work for East Coast Radio. I've been there for about 7 years now. I'm a co-host on the Drive show, so that's in the afternoon. That's 3 to 6. And I've been at the station for about 7 years. I worked my way up from sort of just starting as a freelance sports reader on the weekends, and I kind of cut my teeth as a journalist at a community newspaper, and then I moved to the Witness. I was their rugby writer for about a year. When they opened the Durban paper in Durban. So that was pretty cool. And that sort of got me into covering rugby full time. Obviously, I've always been passionate about rugby. And then I did that for about a year. And East Coast asked me to come on as a full-time weekend sports anchor. So then I had to do that for about a year, which meant, full-time working on the weekend, working at the studio. But I mean, I loved it because actually, all the sport happens on the weekend. So you're constantly running in and out of the studio, updating your bulletins as quickly as you can in between each hourly shift, and did that for about a year. And then I moved on to the Drive show, and I've been on the Drive show for about 4 years now. So yeah, I love my job. I'm very lucky to do what I do.
Yeah, that's a big thing, I think, in any job. Is if you love what you do, then it's not really a job anymore. So I mean, I think we working in sport. I think the guys that like us that do work in sport, we're very, very lucky in that regard, because I mean, a lot of people envy us, even though I think you've had the same chat with people when they meet you and they're like, oh geez, that's so cool. And but then when you get down to telling them what you do, then it fast quickly becomes a reality that it's also a job, and there are pros and cons. It's not just all glamorous, as some would think.
Yeah, no, 100%.
If we can start off by just basically, if you can tell us how did your love for rugby specifically, where did it come from? I mean, who instilled it in you?
Yeah, I think for most rugby fans, they'll admit that it comes from their dad. And when I think back to when I sort of started watching sport, like rugby was the first thing, rugby and cricket, but rugby more than anything. And I was born in 91, so I'm not even 30 yet. So I apologize if my rugby knowledge only stretches from like the late 90s onwards. But I have memories of watching rugby with my dad from, like when your memory can sort of, like when you can start remembering things. And my dad worked for SAB, so we lived in different African countries over the years. And I remember living in Ghana and first watching rugby. And I think it was, I don't know if the Springboks it was an end of year tour, but I remember watching 2 tests against Ireland. And I think it was maybe 97, 98 before the 99 World Cup. And that for me really sticks out as like one of those sort of, first memories of watching rugby and sort of seeing your parents getting excited or seeing a group of adults getting excited about watching rugby. Yeah. And then it only grew from there. And I remember properly like 99, Yanni de Beers dropped goals against England. That kind of stuff still sticks in my mind as like a big sort of pivotal point for me where I really I fell in love with rugby, and it was all I ever wanted to do. And, I loved fly-offs. I loved kicking. So like from my early years, I was always kicking balls in the background, breaking windows. My mom was always shouting at me. So obviously, like you watch rugby like that, and you aspire to be a rugby player, and that was kind of always what I wanted to do. And yeah, man, I loved rugby from a young age, but definitely from my dad. Like he put us in front of the screens, and he was so passionate. He was one of those. I think there's a lot of South Africans that just shout at the screen. You know,
Yeah.
they really, really love watching rugby, and like that instilled in me, and I still do the same thing. In fact, I have to keep calm when I'm in the press box now. Like, try not to get too excited.
I must say, it's something, even having accreditation, and stuff. I've never really ventured into a press box before because, yeah, I don't think it's something I'd be able to do, to contain yourself. I think when you're at a World Cup or, a World Cup final for that matter, you probably
Yo,
will be forgiven
I'll tell you
to.
about that a little bit later. It was,
Yeah,
yo,
please do. I mean, it would be great to get that kind of insight, from that kind of perspective. But
yeah,
I remember, I had the opportunity once to go to the president's box at Loftus, and we had to wear a suit and tie, and I was like, this
yeah.
is so wrong on so many levels. I
It's
mean,
a very formal event. Yeah.
yeah, and then I remember we at halftime we went to get food and stuff, and then when we came back, it was just like some of the guys sitting, because the box at the presidential suite at Loftus is kind of split. So there's
Okay.
like a very formal area, and then there's a area where it's like the lesser invited guests kind of sit. And then the next moment, I just saw some guys that are like, "No, bugger this," and they just started jumping up and going berserk. And I was like, "Okay, that's it. I'm part
Now
of
it's
them now."
fine. Yeah,
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 yeah. Even though I'm wearing a suit, at least I can be
yeah.
myself again. But yeah, it's not something I'd like to do. But I suppose when it's your job, you got to sometimes have a bit of,
100%.
some there's some etiquette that you got to follow and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, what is your I just wanted to find out, like, who is your, or which team have you been supporting since whenever, or maybe you swapped allegiance at some stage. It does happen. I mean, some guys
Mm.
grow up supporting a team, and then some of them, finally see the light and they start supporting, like, the Bulls and stuff like
The
that.
Bulls.
Um,
I knew you were going to say
but
that.
who's your favorite team? And I'm not. Let's not talk international, like in
Yeah.
Springboks and stuff like that.
Mm. Yeah, for me, it's always been the Sharks, and I can't remember when I started supporting the Sharks, but like I was saying to you earlier, my dad worked for SAB, so he was basically an expat. He's British, so he
Okay.
immigrated to South Africa in the early '80s and started working here. And I'm one of 5 siblings, so for about 10 to 15 years, we lived in South Africa, and we were all born in South Africa, so all of the kids are South African. And then we moved into African countries, but we started coming back on holiday in Ballito, and Ballito kind of became like our home base in South
Yeah.
Africa while we were obviously living in African countries. And I think that's why I started supporting the Sharks, because we were in Durban, and everyone in Durban kind of supported the Sharks. And it's funny, I never went to a Sharks game at Kings Park until I was about in my late teens.
Oh
So
wow.
I never actually went to Kings Park, but from when I was about 10 or 11, I think I started supporting the Sharks, and it's never really changed. Obviously, my dad's British, and when I watch Premiership rugby, I support Leicester Tigers.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's sort of my like overseas team that I'll support. I haven't watched
Yes.
a lot of their rugby in recent years, to be honest, but like at home, it's the Sharks. And I actually went to university up in Pretoria, so I went to Tikkies, and even that can get me to support the Bulls. Although I did go and watch quite a few games at Loftus. So.
Geez, you had the wrong friends then or something.
Oh, they tried, but yeah,
Oh, well,
my
that's okay.
blood is black and white.
Hopefully you got to watch a lot of good rugby though.
I did. I actually I have a very good memory of watching the Bulls play the Crusaders, and it was one of the first times I saw Dan Carter playing live, and that for me was just unreal. We had some
Oh
nice
wow.
seats, and like being 10. This was before I even had any ambition of sort of moving into. I was studying psychology, so I wasn't even thinking about becoming a journalist or anything at that stage. And
Yeah.
yeah, like to be 50 meters away from where Dan Carter was. I was like, this is amazing. Yeah, it was really, really good. Loftus is a great stadium. I like it.
Yeah, that is true. Um, Sorry, my phone keeps going off here, man. Jeez.
No
Anyway,
problem.
you've just mentioned Loftus as being one of, obviously you've been to quite a few grounds.
I have now.
Starting, yeah, geez, I mean, now after the World Cup and stuff, I mean, which we'll touch on a bit as well at some stage. What ground to you stands out? I mean, just out of interest, I mean, it's probably going to be Kings Park or whatever, but I mean, you've been to quite a few grounds in. I don't know where you've been in the world yet. I mean, besides
Yeah,
Japan, obviously last year. I don't know if you've had opportunity to go on end of year tours yet or something, but
not yet.
what ground
No.
that you've attended stands out to you and why?
Yeah, I think I have to say Kings Park because, from obviously I'm a Sharks fan and from going there, I love the stadium. In South Africa, I haven't been to Newlands. I've been to Ellis Park. I've watched rugby there. I've been to Loftus, Kings Park. I haven't been to Mbombela. I haven't watched at Newlands, which is pretty sad because it looks
Yeah.
like at this stage, if we don't get Super Rugby back on, that's going to be the end of Newlands. They're going to knock it down, and I will have never watched the rugby game there, which will be pretty sad. I would actually have to say, having watched rugby in all of those stadiums, Ellis Park has probably the best atmosphere, but I haven't watched the Springbok Test there, which I would love to. I watched, I think it was back in 2012 or something. I watched the Currie Cup semi-final there. I can't remember exactly what year it was. That was really, really good, and obviously it was pretty packed there. Loftus is great as well. There's always a good atmosphere. Bulls fans are very, very passionate. I think you could probably put Bulls fans up there with. I haven't watched the Newlands, but you can see how the Newlands fans are a very excitable bunch. And I always found that the Bulls fans were the same. They always cheer the opposition stuff. So that was pretty good. But I would say that Ellis Park's probably the best stadium in South Africa that I've watched at. And then I haven't been on end of year tour, so I'm dying to go and watch rugby at Twickenham. I'd love to go to. It's not Lansdowne Road, and is it anymore? Ireland's the Aviva Stadium,
Yeah.
new Lansdowne Road, I guess. I'd love to go to Murrayfield as I just want to go on an end of year tour. I think for any rugby fan, end of year tour is sort of a bucket list type thing.
Yes.
And then Japan was amazing. They played a lot of the games at Yokohama Stadium International, and that's where the final was. And I don't like that stadium purely on the fact that it has an athletics track around it. So you're actually very, very far away from the game. So it takes away a bit of the atmosphere. The games at Tokyo Stadium, there's no track. So that was a lot closer. I really, really enjoyed that. Tokyo Stadium was good. But I think my favorite stadium in Japan was the Toyota Stadium, where the Springboks played. I think they played Namibia there, and it's very cool. It's one of those stadiums that can have a closing roof, but it was really interesting. The roof is broken, and apparently it'll cost so much to fix it that they've never been able to fix it. So it stays open, but it's beautiful, and the way it's very, very high stands, beautiful roof over it, but obviously it's open, and for me, it's just one of the most beautiful stadiums I've ever seen. And I've also watched at Moses Mabhida Stadium, which is beautiful. But once again, it's one of those stadiums that has a track around it, and that for me is just a serious buzzkill when it comes to rugby. With football, it's fine because the players are spread out the field most of the time. So you've always got your defenders sort of on halfway or behind halfway. So most of the field is covered by players. But with rugby, you've got your fullback sitting at the back and maybe one of the wings dropping back. But action is always happening at one side of the field, wherever they are in the field. So most of the time you have play on one side of the field, and the closer you are to the field, the better the atmosphere for me. So I would say Ellis Park's probably the best. But like the most beautiful stadium I went to was the Toyota Stadium in Japan. It was really, really beautiful.
Yes, that must have been an experience of note to be there. I tell you, just sitting at home and seeing every week go by, the atmosphere literally, you could see it grow, and it was. I actually saw someone that went there for I think 2 weeks or so, and I met them. They went for I think the quarterfinal and semi-final.
Yeah.
And then I spoke to them and I said it was almost like it was tangible, even though you're in South Africa, you could actually experience it. It was just unbelievable. I mean, I would have given anything to be there, but yeah, I mean, some of us are just luckier than others. But who knows? Maybe something in the future.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, just while we're on it, I mean, just tell us about your experience in Japan. I mean, what stood out for you? What wasn't so great? Because obviously with the good comes the bad. I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think I will struggle to tell you anything bad about it, to be honest. And like just on that note, I remember it must have been about week 3 or week 4 when there started becoming talk about some of the games being cancelled because of Typhoon Hagibis. And I remember watching one of the panels on SA Rugby Mag. I think it was Keo and the Money Man talking about the tournament not being great and how could World Rugby let this happen. And for me, it was like a bit of a slap in the face because we'd been in Japan for 4 weeks and it had been the most incredible experience, the most amazing support. And then there were guys sitting at home in South Africa saying, no, this tournament hasn't been great. And that for me was completely wrong. Look, everyone has their opinions and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's a difficult opinion to have when you're not actually in Japan and you're not experiencing it firsthand. For me, the Japanese fans were just amazing. Like from the get-go, you could tell they really, really love rugby, and they also really love hosting people. So on match days and stuff, there were Japanese fans that if Japan weren't playing, they would go and buy a Springbok jersey or a All Blacks jersey, whatever, and they would support the teams that were playing. I'm sure you saw lots of stories about the Japanese people learning the anthems of the other teams. So if they were going to watch the game, they would sit and try and sing along with the anthems of the other teams. And then just like for me on game days, the build-up around the stadiums, Japan's funny. It's not like South Africa where there's a lot of bars. So like if you're in Durban, you'll go to the village or something. You'll find, or Florida Road, and you'll do build-up there, and then you'll move down to Kings Park to watch the game and stuff. But in Japan, obviously there are bars, but in places like Yokohama, where before the final, in the closest neighborhood to where the stadium was, there was one bar. But you can drink in the street there, so you can go into the most popular one is 7-Eleven. It's basically a spa, and you walk in there and you can buy beer out of the 7-Eleven. So people would just go into the 7-Eleven, buy beers, and then just drink on the street. And there was one bar in that area, but the 7-Eleven basically just became a bar. So like fans from all countries go into the 7-Eleven. It was cheaper to buy beer there as well. So they go into the 7-Eleven, buy a load of beer, and then just stand outside. So the streets outside the stadium were absolutely packed, even though there was like only one bar. So that bar was completely packed. And then the rest of the streets were just, packed with people. And there were street vendors and stuff like that, Japanese people that were selling beer, selling memorabilia, all of that sort of stuff. And also, it's just so well organized because their public transport is so good. Getting from A to B was really, really well polished. So, like most of the stadiums are very close to quite a big transit center. So you would get on a train, say from central Tokyo. You could go from Tokyo to Yokohama, which is about 35 minutes on one train straight off, and then it's about a max 10-minute walk to the 15-minute walk to the stadium. But obviously, 5 minutes into that, then you're in the area where everyone is, drinking and having a good time before the game. So, like, the build-up on game days was amazing. And then, obviously, I was lucky enough I was covering the Springboks, so pretty much every day we had interview opportunities with the team. And then they would practice in the afternoons, and you could, most of the practices we would watch 15 minutes, and you can do filming and stuff like that, and then you have to leave because obviously the closed session, they don't want guys filming what they're doing, basically. But I stayed at hotels as close as I could to the Springbok Hotel, so we were there every day. And like I said, the transport just made it so easy. Like I think I took a taxi maybe 3 or 4 times the whole time I was there. The rest of the time I had a basically like an Oyster card. If you've been to London, I've never used one, but it's the same thing. It's basically like a little like a Gautrain card, and you'll load money onto that, and then you just tap and you go through, get onto trains. So it made it really, really easy going from A to B. That for me was amazing. More than anything, just the public transport allowed Japan to host the World Cup in a way that I haven't been to another World Cup, but I will confidently say that that's probably one of the best World Cups that has been put on. Probably, with England and France maybe coming second, just in terms of their transport system. It was amazing. And Japanese people are amazing. Food was great. Some of the sightseeing stuff we did was also amazing, and it's just a completely different culture. It's like, yeah, it's very difficult to explain. They're very, very different people. They're quiet. If you sit on the trains and stuff, people just sit quietly. They're not very loud people. So when you sit on a train, it's rude to take a phone call and stuff like that. So people just sit quietly. No one's saying anything. Even after a rugby game, like, it's pretty quiet, besides for the foreigners making noise. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I could talk for days and days about it. It was really one of the best things. And I was there for 2 months. So, I mean, imagine going and living somewhere for, 7.5 weeks. It was a long time to be away from home, but it was incredible. I loved every moment.
Oh, that's awesome. Maybe we'll chat again one day. We can maybe have a recap on your whole experience as a whole. It'd be really cool to. I love hearing stories like that from people, and just experiencing it through someone else. I mean, it's just really something else. Your favorite player from when you started supporting until now? I mean, like I was telling Andy last night, obviously growing up and getting older and stuff, players come and go, so you might, when you started supporting and you started understanding the game, there was somebody that stood out for you that ultimately becomes your main idol. But over the years, I mean, like you mentioned, Dan Carter, for instance, that kind of stuff. Who stands out for you? Even if it's just one player, but even maybe someone now versus somebody back in the day.
Yeah, well, for me, I would have to say back in the day, I had an infatuation with Jonny Wilkinson, and I just thought, for his size, he was really a complete rugby player, and I think he was ahead of his time in terms of his skill level, his ability to kick with both feet as well as he could.
Yes.
And you just think back to the World Cup when he kicked the winning drop goal with his right foot. I mean, most other players would probably be nervous to kick, have a shot at goal to win the World Cup with their preferred foot. But he took the ball there. He saw the guys coming to charge him down on his left foot, so he just quickly jinked over to his right and he kicked a perfect right-footed drop goal to win the World Cup. And I mean, how many guys can say that they've won the World? I mean, Joel kicked an amazing drop goal to win us the World Cup in '95, and it was a massive kick. I mean, you watch that thing, that kick where the ball was like way above the post at Ellis Park, but he kicked it with his right foot.
That was like a sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's probably the best kick drop goal of all time, and then Wilkinson's comes in second. And I think also what I loved about Jonny Wilkinson and someone like Pat Lambie was similar, was that he just punched well above his weight. And, you see some other fly-offs and back that they're amazing attacking rugby players and they kick really well and stuff, but they found wanting when it comes to defense. And Wilkinson was one of those guys that you could see he was always just aggressive on defense, and to his detriment actually, because he ended up getting injured a lot because he was flying into tackles and stuff like that, and maybe not looking after his own welfare as much as he should have been to be playing more often. But he threw himself into everything. And I think for me, he back then. But like I say, I'm under 30, so I'm giving you a rugby player who's sort of played in the more modern era. So I can't speak for the Dani Gerths and people like that because I never got to experience that firsthand. So Wilkinson back then, I think, would be my favorite player back then. And I had a few favorites like Yanni de Beer, like I was telling you earlier. His 5 drop goals against England, like that made me fall in love with kicking. So like for a little while I loved Yanni de Beer, but I mean, in the greater scheme of rugby players, he's not up there with the best.
I agree.
Dan Carter is probably him and Wilkinson. They're literally the same WhatsApp group. There's a special two for the both of them. I think they're really the two best fly-offs we'll ever see, and there's a few that come close. And then modern player right now, and I even said it before the World Cup, Pieter-Steph du Toit is the best rugby player in the world, hands down. Yes, he's a forward, but just the way he plays the game, his work rate and stuff. And I mean, I think back, probably what, 5 years ago, he was at the Sharks. He was playing lock. He was a great rugby player, but obviously he was a bit heavier than he was now. And you just look at the player that he's become and the way he plays blindside flank. I don't think there's anyone that comes close. He's, in my mind, probably as good as Richie McCaw was when he was at his best. He's just something else, and I would love to see someone like Cheslin Kolbe become that as well, because I think pound for pound, Cheslin Kolbe is probably the best rugby player in the world, just because of his size and his explosivity and everything that he can do in a short amount of space. But the impact that Pieter-Steph du Toit has on a rugby game, and you could see it at the World Cup. He was massive. For me, he's the best rugby player right now in the world, and the World Rugby back-to-back awards just shows it. He's so good. He's a joy to watch. I love it.
No, well, that's I think you spot on there, and it's quite sad that we're sitting in the situation that we are, with this lockdown and the virus and everything. I remember when he got injured now, saying, I mean, it was just ahead of the Sharks Stormers game, and my biggest thing leading into that week was to see what impact Pieter-Steph actually does have on a game, with him now being out of it. And I think you wouldn't have seen it just in one game, and unfortunately that was the last game. So it's kind of sad that things ended up that way, that we couldn't have seen a few more games just to see what gap is left, in the Stormers setup, for instance. In this regard. So, but I think in a way it's a blessing in disguise, this whole lockdown or situation we find ourselves in, to give him time to recover as well, because
especially with the injury that he had. They were saying it was, I mean, he got compartment syndrome, and it's a very, very rare injury to have. I mean, it's basically just massive hematoma, and your muscle swells. So the only way you can relieve that is to cut the whole muscle belly open and let the swelling go out, and then obviously everything starts to. So as far as I understand, they had to cut open his leg and leave it open for 3 or 4 days, so that they could relieve the pressure, because otherwise it's so bad that they have to amputate your leg. So I understand that they had to cut open his leg and let the swelling dissipate before they could stitch it up, and that's just how bad his hematoma was. And I read the articles. I'd love to speak to him about it, but I read the articles, and he was basically saying, and you can see he's a tough bastard. And he said it's some of the worst pain he has ever experienced. He got to the hospital and he was like, "You guys, you have to do something. Like, this pain is absolutely unbearable." And it was literally just because the swelling was so bad. It's unbearable pain, and that's what they had to do. They had to cut his leg open, in order to save it. And now, at least, like you say, it's the silver lining in the lockdown is that he's going to have probably 6 weeks at least to just properly heal and then slowly get back to training. All those Stormer guys have been unlucky with the injuries. I mean, Sia's off the ball little charge that did his knee. Bongi's injury was horrific as well. I mean, I don't think we're going to see him play rugby again this year.
Yeah, as far as I know, he's out for this whole year. So I mean, and the sad thing about it is that we're talking about Springboks here. We're not talking about just another Joe, So not that with no, there's no disrespect to any guy that's not a Springbok, but I mean,
they were pivotal Springboks in the World Cup squad.
in the time that we are, with the Springboks being number one in the world, and just it's not great. I mean, to have a guy out for the whole season. Who knows how long Pieter-Steph is going to take exactly? That's 100%. At least Sia's on the mend already, but so I think, like I said, I think last night as well to Andy was, there's going to be a lot of good with the bad, unfortunately, with this whole lockdown and the virus and everything. Not just at home, but hopefully in the world as well. And we did touch on about it. Hopefully it affects the way they think about the game, the way it's structured, and tournaments, maybe stuff like the Curry Cup will be revived to the way it used to be.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would love to see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, that's into their rugby would want to see the Curry Cup as it was back in the day. I mean, it was a great tournament. It set the tone for
100%.
everything else.
Yeah, it did.
So,
It really, really.
but yeah, let's hope for the good. I mean, the guys are clearly, everybody's had to start to rethink about how they're going to approach stuff now, and so let's hope for the better.
Mm.
You told me beforehand, because obviously you watched a bit of the show last night, so, and I'm
Mm.
glad you actually told me you wanted to get something, your favorite, your favorite memorabilia piece, and I know you actually went to fetch it to show us.
Yeah,
So
I did.
what is your favorite piece that you've got in your possession?
Okay, look, so I just want to say quickly, when I heard that you have a signed jersey from Johnny Wilkinson hiding behind your nook behind you over there, I was very jealous as well. And like Andy, I want to sneak into your house and steal that. I also like your Bulls jerseys, your signed Bulls jerseys back there. That's fantastic.
If
What I
you
went
if
and
you
fetched.
You're welcome to come and try and steal it. Just remember, my name is on the jersey, though. So, but I
Okay.
don't mind if it's hanging in your house with my name. It's okay.
Okay, so what I've got here is I've been so lazy. It's actually really bad. I've meant to frame these. So I have all my tickets from the. Let me get this on screen from the World Cup.
There you
So what I want to do is I want to frame them, and I have them in order. So the first one is there you go. South Africa versus New Zealand. That was the first game. The second game was Namibia. So South Africa, Namibia. Canada, so forth, so on and so forth. And then obviously the final one is the ticket from the Rugby World Cup final. And yeah, like this for me is just something to remember the journey by. This is also very cool. This is the match day. These are highly sought after, apparently. This is the match day program
Oh,
from the
wow.
Rugby World Cup final. It's a these are really becoming rare actually, because the more and more we move digital, the less people are putting effort into like a match day program. So this is beautiful. I'm going to have to do something with it to make sure it stays in good condition, because print stuff like this will go funny after a while. But yeah, I'm this is really, really cool. I didn't get any jerseys signed while I was there. On the night of the final, I felt a bit reluctant to get all the Springbok guys to sign my Springbok jersey. Like I've just won the World Cup final. The last thing you want to do is like, please sign this. So I didn't do that. Other memorabilia, I haven't. I've got a lot of Sharks jerseys. I've got various Springbok jerseys and stuff like that, but nothing that's been signed. But some of the jerseys the jerseys I played in. I've got a Pickies under-21 jersey that I got from that season. One of my Rovers jerseys. I played for Rovers first team for a few years. I've got my rugby jersey from school as well, and like those are just personal mementos, because I love playing rugby myself. And you were talking about, or you and Andy were talking about players, and what they actually miss the most is the moments spent and the guys that were in your teams over those years. And like that for me is just a reminder, so when I pull out that jersey, I remember the guys I played with, the games we played in. So those for me like the personal memorabilia. But this World Cup stuff for me is like, that's why I was saying I need to get this framed, because like this will stay with me forever. I mean, I'd never been on a rugby tour, and then my first tour was covering a rugby tour was the Rugby World Cup, and they ended up winning. So I got incredibly lucky to go and do that.
Look, by the sound of it, you're not a big autograph hunter, but to make it maybe even more worth it, you should actually go and see who the man of the matches were, and then if you somehow can bump into those guys or somehow get hold of them, get each of those guys to sign that ticket and then frame them. But yeah,
that's a fantastic idea. I think I'm going to try and do that.
Doesn't matter. I just think they'll have more value to them if you do get them assigned. Actually,
100%. That's a very good idea. Just on that note, I mean, what about your memorabilia? Because I mean, now you've asked Andy. I'm very curious to know what your favorite piece is, and maybe if you can even show it to us, I'd love to see it.
Well, I mean, the one. Let me just get my hands right. That one there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm working back to front here. But anyway,
the old Bulls jersey.
Yeah, that was actually the first Super 12 jersey the Bulls played in, and unfortunately you can't see from here, but it's got that was actually one of the last signatures Joost van der Westhuizen did when he was still
Wow.
able to sign. So yeah, I had that jersey for years. My uncle actually gave it to me because he used to
Okay.
have a chemist. He used to have a chemist at Loftus,
Okay.
and so the players used to come and go there, and then they knew him very well, and they gave him. And then my folks went to visit them one day, and obviously the word came out that I'm like a staunch Bull supporter. And then
Okay.
when they came back home, they said, "Listen, I've got this present for you," and then they gave that to me, and
That's amazing.
yeah. So then when I did, I think it was 3 years that I did a fundraiser for Joost.
Okay.
While he was battling his M&D, and it was still early days. Then I went to him and said, "Please, can you sign this jersey for me?" And
Okay.
eventually it happened. So yeah,
That's fantastic, man.
much for that is
That is a
very.
piece of memorabilia.
Yeah, I've been offered a few, had a few offers already on it, but I told my wife maybe when I'm not around anymore, and
Then
she
you can
really
sell
needs
off some of the
money.
stuff.
Yeah,
Just make
that.
sure you get enough money for it. Don't let anyone sell you short, because that is
Well, I
a
told her, yes, I told her the biggest offer I've had so far, so she's got to make sure. Obviously, the one that I've got of Johnny, these things are so big. I mean, I can't actually take them off the wall. They bolted down. But the
okay.
one that I got, it was a 2007 World Cup jersey, and
Okay.
then Johnny Wilkinson happened to be in South Africa a few years ago. He actually came to SuperSport, and
Okay.
I got word of it, and yes, I almost lost that jersey, and literally hours before he arrived, I only got my hands back on the jersey because I actually borrowed it to someone else
Okay.
and completely forgot about it, and eventually got the jersey back, thankfully.
You tracked it
And
down.
I mean, just meeting Johnny in person, and because we were told, listen, we're not sure if he'll sign anything or whatever, so I just took a chance and I said, please,
Yeah, sometimes you have
even
to.
if you have to personalize it, I don't mind, because I know a lot of players don't like signing jerseys because of people
Because
going
people
out
just
and
go and
selling
sell
it.
them 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he personalized it, which I didn't mind at all. I mean, it's just the fact of meeting him, and as you
Yeah.
can see on most of the jerseys that's framed, there's pictures at the bottom of it.
Hmm.
So like that one with Johnny, I've actually got the picture where I met him.
Okay.
Um,
That's
I've got
epic,
so many
man. That's very, very
memorabilia.
cool.
Actually, you threw me a bit of a curveball there, putting my own question on me, and I'm probably going to get it a few times, which is fine. So I'll have to go look at what I've got and just make sure, because I know I've got quite a few. I've got a special limited edition jersey from the 2007 Super Rugby final.
Okay.
One of those, you probably saw it. It's a golden jersey.
I
Um,
haven't, I've never, no, I've never seen it. You must post it on Twitter, definitely.
Yeah, I used to have it framed, and then I was going to get it reframed because the frame was starting to deteriorate, and unfortunately, the guys closed down that was going to frame it for me. But that piece I can actually hold in my hand, so I'll just pull it closer, then I can, because that was for a long time my most precious,
Prized possession,
my
yeah.
most prized possession ever. So and I've got the thing with that jersey. That's why I kind of mentioned your tickets. I specifically got Heineke Meyer, Derek Hougaard, Brian Abana, who scored the winning
Wow.
try,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think it was it Pierce Peace or someone. I think
Hmm.
he also scored in that game. I can't remember now, but anyway, all the guys that scored in the match, those are the only signatures on the jersey, and obviously the
Okay.
coach. So
Okay.
if I remember, there's only 4 signatures on that jersey.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, to me, that will always be very, very special because it's the first
That's
time.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I was lucky enough to go to all 3 Super Rugby finals, which all 3
Okay.
we
So you
won.
were there. Wow.
So yeah, it's very, very special to me, and I mean, all finals have a special memory for me as well.
Mm.
But yeah, I'll have to go think about that because I've got
You
so
know,
many.
I was just going to say, what you must do is there's so many challenges going on during this lockdown. I've seen some guys posting, your starting 15 with the biography books and stuff like that. You must definitely start a memorabilia challenge and start challenging other guys to show their best. Like
I mean, I actually saw those book challenges, and it's quite cool. I mean, most of them I've seen. I've only got like 4 of those books. I'm not a big reader, so in fairness, I wouldn't have so many books. But I mean, I must say that to me is one of the most impressive challenges I've seen so far. But maybe I'll do one with jerseys.
Definitely.
Your most memorable rugby moment to date?
It's hands down. It's hands down the World Cup final, and I haven't told you about the final itself. That was like an amazing day. That week, it was the last week, and I got a little bit sick. So like on the day when I woke up, I wasn't feeling great, but I was like, flip man, it's the World Cup final. So we were staying in Tokyo, so I had to get a train to Yokohama once again, which was about 35 minutes or so. Went there fairly early in the morning. I think I got on the ground in Yokohama at about 11 o'clock. And there were already people traveling to the stadium by then. But it was, I wouldn't say quiet, but it was building up. So I went all the way to the stadium. Obviously, we were 7 hours ahead. So every day I was doing a crossing for the breakfast show and then for the drive show. So it was 2 radio crossings a day. Obviously, I was writing and I was doing video content and stuff like that. So I got there, I got outside the stadium, and I did a live crossing from outside the stadium, here outside the stadium. And I think I cut a bit of audio of Andre Pollard talking about maybe kicking a drop goal to win the World Cup or something like that. And then I went back, and there were 7 journalists with us covering from South Africa covering. So Hendrik Cronje from Report, John Cardinelli from SA Rugby Mag, Ashfaq Mohammed from Independent, Adnan Mohammed, Liam Dalcom was there as well. I feel like I'm missing someone. I think that was everyone. Anyway, so we were all kind of milling around, and we would see each other on game day, but obviously when we were in the press box, we all tried to sit together. So build up during the game, like obviously it just built and built and built, and it got closer and closer to kickoff, and you could clearly see that there were way more English fans than South African fans, which was a bit disappointing. Oh, really? Yeah, that it was great though. Like the atmosphere was amazing, and the South African fans were excited. Don't get me wrong, there were, and I have to say it was amazing throughout the World Cup. For every Springbok game, there were a lot of South Africans that traveled to Japan. Like people made an effort to go there, and it's far. Jacques, let me tell you, it's a long. It's like 22 hours of travel to get there. So hats off to everyone that went to the World Cup. But the English fans were so adamant that they were going to win, and I couldn't believe it. So I spoke to a lot of people, because obviously I was doing social media videos and stuff, and all the English fans were like, "Oh, we've got this in the bag," and you could see the South African fans were like, "Yeah, I think we can win." Some of them were a bit more positive than others, but they were kind of iffy. So we did the build up and everything. Had a beer before the game. Went into the stadium, packed, sang the national anthems. And it was like I've never been to Twickenham, but if that's what Twickenham is like, that's exactly what Twickenham was like. When they sing "God Save the Queen," it sounded like we were in England, And then the South African anthem was great, but it was nowhere near as loud. Like the English were in full voice. Obviously, the game went on, and first half was pretty close. Still amazing atmosphere. Whenever they sang "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot," it was like, oh, you could feel the pressure the Springbok guys were having to deal with that. And then in the second half, when we scored the first try, it went quiet. You could see that the English were a bit nervous. And then when Colby scored his second try, like you just knew. And this is what I wanted to tell you. When we scored the first try, like I remember I was sitting next to Hendrik and Adnan, and I could see they were getting a bit emotional. And then when Colby scored his second try, both of them, Hendrik was just crying, Adnan was crying. I had tears in my eyes, because you knew, like there was like 7 minutes left to play. Colby scored the second try. England aren't going to win the Rugby World Cup final. It's done. Like we've won the World Cup.
You knew it.
Yeah, 100%. And then like the next 6 minutes of the game went by, and it was kind of just like I was in this weird dream state. Like this is really happening. They're going to win the World Cup. And so we won, and they did the trophy ceremony and stuff, which you're so far away from the field that like that was probably better to watch on TV, I can imagine, but it was still like it was amazing, just to see, and you could see how much it meant to everyone. I remember I had my binoculars and I was looking through my binoculars, and Alma Smith was on the field, and I was looking at her, and I could see she was also just crying. So that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah.
And then we obviously moved downstairs for the press conference, and like as soon as England went first, and then
Yes.
Rassie and Sia came in with the Rugby World Cup trophy, and I was like sitting in the front row, and first question, I just stuck my hand up. I was like, no, I have to get the first question. So I managed to ask Sia the first question of the press conference, and like,
Oh
can you
wow.
explain to us how you're feeling? And like that for me was really, really amazing. And you could just see, like, just looking, especially Rassie, he was just like sitting there staring at the trophy, and I think he was also just like trying to pinch himself, like this is real, like that we've done it. The Rugby World Cup trophy is there. So that was pretty cool. And then we had like mix zone and stuff like that, where we interviewed quite a few of the guys. And then we went straight back to Tokyo, and then to Tokyo Bay. So it was about an hour and a half train trip. And we went to the Springbok Hotel to obviously like go and celebrate with the team. So they went by bus, they went back there. They had like an hour and a half, 2 hour team meeting, fines meeting. And then it was like
Oh,
family
wow.
and close friends that were just waiting for them to wrap everything up. And then they opened the sort of conference area where they were hanging out for people to come in, and
Oh,
family and
really?
friends come and mingle and stuff. Yeah, I didn't want to like hang around too much there, so I went in briefly and I grabbed a beer, and I chatted to Quibus quickly. I saw Thomas the Toy, a couple of the Sharks guys, but I was kind of like in and out. Like more than anything, it's their moment, and I didn't want to be like journalist turned fan in that moment. But we hung out the rest of the night there. Rusty came and spoke to us for quite a while, like half an hour. Yeah, man, best. I think it's going to be difficult for me to ever top that moment unless we go and win another Rugby World Cup final. But it was like a dream. It was beautiful, really, really
Oh,
amazing.
wow. Jeez, I must say, I envy you just hearing that. I think,
It was cool.
geez, I would have just been like, just in awe. Just probably, you're probably speechless in a way. You don't know what to do.
Yeah,
You're standing with these guys. They've just won the World Cup. You really don't actually know what to say. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
where do you start? What do you say? What do you,
Just
it's
shake
kind of
my
like,
hands like well done. I mean, there's like they're trying to soak it up as much as you are. It was really
yeah,
it was amazing. I was privileged to be there. It's really I was so lucky to like go there as my first tour and see them win the Rugby World Cup. It was
yes.
beautiful. It was really, really cool.
I think, I remember 95. I mean, that's also, I was at that semi-final at Kings Park
Okay.
because, believe it
In
or
the
not,
rain.
most of my life I grew up in Natal. I lived
Yeah.
in Pietermaritzburg for many, many years. And I went to that 95 semi-final at Kings Park in the rain. It was, it's so, trying to, my son is quite small, so it's a bit difficult to explain to him that kind of stuff now.
Mm.
Maybe in a few years time it will be more possible, but those are just, it's just things you can't almost explain to someone. You can tell them, but you can never
Yeah.
really convey
You
that
have to be there to yeah,
experience. Yeah, it's like, it just belongs to you forever.
100%.
um, I mean, going from that complete high, what would you say is your most, like, your biggest heartbreak moment
Yeah.
of your rugby memory with anything? It could be school, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. It's it's actually an easy one for me
Yeah.
because so on our show at the moment on East Coast Drive, we've got a feature running called What Happens Next. So what I do is I go and I find basically the biggest sporting moments,
Yeah.
over the last 20 years or whatever, and I play commentary up until a certain point, and then I stop it, and then
Okay.
the listener has to tell us what happens next. So obviously, it's very memorable moments and very memorable
Cool.
commentary. So for most people, they will have heard it and they will have remembered it. And one of them was, and you mentioned it. You mentioned your special golden jerseys, the 2007 Super Rugby
Yeah.
final. I think all Sharks fans, like, fine, we went and won the World Cup after that, and the Sharks and the Bulls guys made up a big bulk of that team. But it was just it hurts so much I remember watching it. So I was still at school. I was in grade 11, I'd gone home, and it was just me and my mom in Belito. I think it was a half term or something like that. So, but I wasn't able to go to the game, so I watched it at home. And I remember sitting in the lounge. I was actually watching by myself. My mom wasn't even watching, and like Sharks were ahead, and I think it was Albert van den Berg or someone that that scored the try. Then the Sharks were ahead, and that long passage of play happened. Butch didn't kick the ball out, and then they kicked the ball down, and Frans Steyn got the ball. And I watched this. I watched it maybe 4 days ago, and it was literally he got the ball, and I think it was 80 minutes and 30 seconds gone, and he just hoops it down the field. Spieth runs it up, and it's a few phases. So they go all the way down the left. Ndengane even gets hammered in this massive tackle, and then I think it's Heine Adams who threw that long pass to Habana, and then he cut back in and ran and scored. And I just remember watching in my lounge, and Habana scored, and I was just like, how is this happening? Like, we won, like when Van den Berg scored, it looked like the Sharks had won. And I think mentally kind of switched off. They were like, we've won this game, and whatever, we'll hold on, we're going to win. Like, they're never going to score a try and beat us. And then it just ended up happening. And watching it again this week, I haven't watched that game I don't think I've watched it since 2007. And I watched it, and I was just like, how did this happen? And I remember when it happened, I was like, I hate Brian Habana. I hate him. Like, how can you do this to us? It was so painful to watch. And I think, more than anything, it's probably one of the hardest. Like, I was trying to think back to any Springbok games that particularly hurt that we lost. And I don't think anything compares to that Super Rugby final that, we lost. Because that Sharks team was amazing as well. I mean, like, both teams were fantastic. They had an amazing line. Just look at the players across the field. That's what the Currie Cup used to be, and it felt like a Currie Cup final. That's really, really what it felt like. So I'd say for me, that's my most disappointing rugby moment. That one really, really hurt.
Any rugby tales, folk stories you might know that you've heard of?
Yeah, I've heard some funny ones, and there was one that I wanted to tell you, but it's not my story, and it's so almost explicit that I'm not going to tell it. But it involved the Lions tour from 2009. It's a hilarious story, but I'm not going to tell it. I really wanted to, but I don't think it's my place to tell it. But I think from the Rugby World Cup, in the week of the final, my birthday was on the Thursday, 31st of October.
Okay.
And it was the day that the Springboks announced their team. So it was the Thursday, 2 days before the final. They played the final on Saturday. And Rassie and the Springbok management team organized a lunch for all the media guys, the South African journalists. So like I said, it was those 6 other journalists and myself, and the whole Springbok coaching team. And they had us for basically an informal lunch. And at the beginning, Rassie kind of stood up and just said, look, we wanted to just host this lunch for you guys and just say thank you for the coverage and, treating us the way we did. Because I think we had a pretty good working relationship. They were pretty open and honest with us. Everything that we kind of asked for, I would have liked a few one-on-ones and stuff like that. But just in terms of the protocol and stuff that World Rugby had put in place, it was a bit difficult for them to do that. But Rassie, you could see he was very thankful about the way we went about things. I mean, there was some difficult, things. The bomb squad thing happened with Magazole Mapimpi, and that was a pretty precarious situation, just considering the social media backlash back home. And then obviously everything that was going on with Eben Etzebeth, and throughout the tournament, they didn't put him up for any interviews or anything like that, just to avoid any sort of stuff. Which I mean, you could probably say that they probably should have put him up for some interviews and let him face the music, but everything was happening at home. Like we were in a quiet, sleepy town the week that the Human Rights Commission said that they were going to charge him. So it was a difficult situation. We all handled it pretty well. So Rassie was very thankful about that. But anyway, so we had this media lunch, and it was literally just beers on the house, lunch on the house. And I'm not joking, Jacques. We sat there for like 6 hours, and it slowly got smaller and smaller. Like some of the guys left. So Proudfoot, was around for a while, and he left. Stick stayed until the end. Andy Colquhoun and Rayon, the media guys, eventually left, and it ended up being like Rassie, Jacques Minaba, and Stick with all the journalists, and we were just drinking beers, and we were talking about everything. And for me, the main takeaway was just I don't know if you've ever met Rassie, and I know guys out there that will have watched this. that know Rusty know he's a very very jovial, fun-loving guy. You know, like as much as he's serious, and you know when it's time to work, it's time to work. He loves a good time. He loves a beer. He loves to socialize with people. And he was seriously, he was so candid. You know, like you can ask him anything, and he'll tell you what he can tell you. You know, and I really like that about him. And the main takeaway was just, I kind of knew that the Springboks were going to win the Rugby World Cup final. I mean, I didn't know, but something about the way Rassie and Jacques were that day just said to me, like, they're going to win it. And Rassie even said, like, up until the Thursday, he was like, there wasn't too much that we could do up until now. Like, we've prepared as much as we can, and in a Rugby World Cup final week, less is actually more. And he said in the first week of the tournament, in the build-up to the All Blacks game, there was so much hype. They were probably too anxious, and they did a bit too much. They were telling the players too much stuff. So up until the Thursday, Rassie was like, you know, we actually haven't done a lot. You know, went to training, went through our units, we did what we needed to do, but we haven't done anything. And he's like, Friday and Saturday, we switch on. That's when we go, and we've got this. And I think he loved that everyone was talking up the English pack so much, because he knew hands down, with the 6-2 split and everything, and the forward pack that he had, they were going to win the World Cup final. And I honestly believe that. Like, so my little tour tale was this lunch that we had with Rassie on my birthday. It was just unbelievable. And, you know, you got to have a few beers with the Springbok coaching staff and just actually let them blow off some steam as well before the Rugby World Cup final. And then the rest is history. It was really, really good. So hats off to the Springbok coaching staff for the way that they've been handling that sort of stuff. It's been really, really good.
No, I think they were just incredible. And just Rassie's complete approach, and now seeing all these videos that he's releasing and stuff, just gives such a different perspective. And yes, I actually did get to meet Rassie once before. That would be a whole episode of how crazy that was, because I still, until today, almost can't forgive myself. But we'll have a chat about that one day, definitely. I just wanted to ask you one more thing. If there was one player in the world that you might have met him or not, but if there's one question that you could ask one specific player that you've never asked before, but you would love to ask them, what would it be? And who?
That's a difficult one. I'm trying to think. I would love to know if there were any players that were in a position where they felt like they shouldn't have played in a game, but the coaches were adamant that they should play. You know, I mean, like you hear stories about Andre Joubert playing in the Rugby World Cup final with a broken hand, or you know, I was watching actually a game recently where Dwayne Vermeulen was playing with cracked ribs and stuff like that. With, you know, any of those guys, were there ever any moments where they, you know, wanted to go to the coach and say, don't play me in this game? And I mean, it happened a few times, you know, when I was playing club rugby and stuff, where I wasn't feeling 100%, but I was also like, I don't want to tell the coach not to pick me, because what happens if the other guy plays better than me and then I don't stay in the team, you know? And were there ever any moments like that where you knew you shouldn't be playing in a game, but you didn't say anything, you know? And if it did it cost the game? I can't think of anything off the top of my head where there was a time where a player played and be playing, you know? But I mean, like there's definitely been games where guys weren't 100%, and then they've played and they've ended up costing the team in some way or another, where they probably should have, you know, been a bit selfless and been like, don't play me. And it was interesting. I was chatting to Lloyd Bernard from Sport 24, and he's busy wrapping up a book that they're doing on the World Cup as well. And he was talking about the week of the final. And not a lot of people know this, but Willie Leroux was actually, he was carrying a shoulder niggle. And they got a specialist in to help him that week. And Lloyd was actually telling me that Willie had spoken to Rassie and also been like, maybe I shouldn't play in the final, you know, like, I don't know if I'm up for this. He was under so much pressure as well, you know. So it's like those situations where, has there ever been a chance, a game where you felt like I shouldn't be playing in this game, but played anyway, the coaches picked? Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to know.
Yeah, I think there's so many stories to be told from that World Cup. it would be, yeah, I think we're still going to see a lot of stuff come out over the next few years and stuff. So
Yeah.
that will be really
Look,
cool. And I think when players
I
start
also,
retiring,
yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I was toying with the idea of writing my own book. I just haven't had time, to be honest, But like
yeah,
from my perspective, the way I saw the tournament, because as much as we had a lot of access to the Springboks, we had a lot, we had literally 3 plays every day for 7 weeks. But you're not behind closed doors, like you're not in the team meetings, and you can see
yeah,
from the videos that Rusty's been posting, that's where you get a real sense of what was going on and what the psyche was like and what the players were going through, because a lot of that stuff is just completely unseen, and people want to know that stuff,
yeah,
Yes, it's part of the behind the scenes stuff, and that is part of the joy and the privilege of being a Springbok, is being privy to those conversations, those team meetings, like the Springbok initiation. I've spoken to Pat Lambie, and like even he won't tell me. He won't tell you about the Springbok initiation. It's just something you're not supposed to talk about. Like
oh
that's for
wow,
a Springbok. If you're a Springbok, you get to be a part of that. But most of the people don't get to hear about that. So there's some things you can't tell, but there's some things you do want to know about. So hopefully we do
yeah,
get to
yeah.
hear some of the stories in the future.
Jeez, that would be amazing. Um, anyway, geez, Gareth, thanks so much. We've broken the hour record, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's good.
I'm sure you're going to
I
go
like it.
way longer than an hour in the future.
Oh yeah, yeah. It just depends. I suppose every guy's got his own stories and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's really cool. I mean, and that's the whole idea behind it. Is just to share stories that other people might not know or have never heard about, and just giving people a different perspective from I mean, people like like us that work in sport, and that's privileged enough to experience stuff and hear stuff and see stuff that other people might not, and we're not always in a position to tell those stories on the platforms that we work on.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to just, like I said in the beginning, just give these guys a platform where we can share stories with each other and just experiences and stuff. And then that's really, really awesome. Some of the stuff you've told me has been really insightful, and I mean, it's really cool to hear that from someone else's perspective, how they
Yeah.
experience like the 2007 final. I mean, it's nice to hear those stories, because we've all got our own version or our own
Exactly.
story or something that we've heard from someone else, how they
Mm.
experienced it. So thank you so much for your time. I really, really
Thank you, Jacques.
appreciate it.
No,
So
you're welcome. I look forward to
yeah,
watching the rest of the interviews as well. You must keep reaching out to other media guys and just interesting
no,
people
I'm
in the space.
definitely going to do it. I'm definitely going to do it, and I mean, hopefully, the word gets out, and then people. I mean, if people start reaching out, if not, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a closed group, or just like a
No,
specific
of
group.
course. Yeah.
I mean, until before today, I can honestly. My wife actually asked me last night, so who you chatting to tomorrow? So I said, no, it's Gareth from East Coast Radio. I actually don't know much about him, but I know he went to the World Cup and he does sport, and he's a bit of a journalist and stuff. But he's on
Yeah.
social media, and he's exactly what I'm looking for. And after the chat, I'll know a little bit more about him. So
Mm.
that's the whole idea, and it's also
Yeah.
another platform of getting to know each other, I think.
100%.
Because living, I mean, I live in Gauteng, you live in Natal. Um, we don't necessarily, our paths might never cross, but who
Exactly.
knows? Maybe one day, somewhere along the road, we will meet each other. Other than that,
100%.
maybe this is the only time we'll ever meet each other. So,
Well,
but yeah,
it's the silver lining of the lockdown, isn't it?
yeah. At least it opens doors like this, where people kind
Yeah.
of like, well, what am I gonna do today? So
Yeah.
at least
Exactly.
you work from home now in the lockdown, or do you
Yeah,
actually go
so
into
I'm
studio?
actually I can go to studio, so I've got a permit. Obviously, radio is part of it's like an essential service, so I've got a permit. So
Mm.
I am actually going to the studio now for a couple of hours. We've got a couple of interviews to do, but I'm actually doing the radio show from home. So I've got a small microphone and I've got a really good internet connection. So we just connect into the studio from there through the internet, and we've been doing a 3-hour radio show from the comfort of our lounges, which is pretty cool. It's just a different way
Yeah,
of working. I quite like it. I mean, I spend a lot of time. I mean, you're only on radio for a certain period. I do a lot of obviously rugby stuff, but in between that, I'm mostly just working from home anyway, so it hasn't changed too much for me. But but yeah, it's different. It's been different, and that's why I think stuff like this is great, because it's just creating more content. It's interesting conversations, that people should be hearing, especially if they're rugby lovers. There's a lot of people out there that have some interesting stories to tell.
Yes. Anyway, all the best. Hopefully we're not locked down too long, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be 21 days. I think it's going to be longer.
It might be a
So
little bit longer.
let's settle in and get our seatbelts on for an interesting ride. So, but hopefully,
I hope you bought enough beer.
well, you know what? I'm gonna have to be quite tough because I don't drink and I don't smoke. So,
okay.
yeah, my patience will be tested to the utmost of all. I mean, being a Bull supporter is quite tough already.
There you go.
Only the toughest will survive. Anyway,
Exactly.
Gareth, thanks once again. And
Cheers, Doc. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please feel free if you want to. And thank you once again for coming on. Have a nice day.
Cheers, Jacques. Thank you very much, man. Take care.
Stay
Cheers.
well.
Bye-bye.